bold, be brave, be extraordinary, be vulnerable, be real, be curious, be true, be you. Welcome to Trusting Your Gut with world-class energy intuitive Catherine McIntosh, a show designed to awaken you to enjoy the process of evolving, have fun along the way, and learn to listen to those silent in-between moments. You are the expert of your own life, and nobody knows more about the next steps to take in your journey than you. So please, listen to your gut and discover what's waiting for you to explore. Here is your host, Catherine McIntosh.
Hello, my magical friends. Welcome to today's show. Let me get my head's not cut off. So today we are talking about the leading cause of inflammation, which is going to lead us into a deeper conversation, more in-depth conversation about something I think is not talked about or addressed enough. And as a woman of a certain age who has gone through perimenopause and menopause, the cortisol, right? So, a lot of people look at, oh, my diet is causing inflammation, or maybe alcohol or tobacco or environmental toxins or everything else. But I actually believe that the leading cause of inflammation is stress. And when we are stressed, most people are living in a chronic state of stress. And when stress is abundant, we're in constant fight or flight. We are, our cortisol levels are raised high. When cortisol is high, right? Cortisol is sort of the survival hormone, right? So when cortisol is high, you're like, let me flee, let me run from every situation. And so imagine you're at the grocery store and your cortisol levels are high and you get into an altercation or just have a little exchange that feels weird with someone. All of a sudden, what could just have been like, a stream moving around a rock all of a sudden becomes a blow up. And then when that happens, your cortisol floods your body. It begins an adrenaline pump in your system, which can lead to chronic fatigue. It can lead to exhaustion. It can lead to feeling anxious. It can lead to depression. And so, as an intuitive and as someone who works with people all around the world, I hear stories every day. I've probably worked with over 20,000 bodies in the last 25 years. And the amount of people that say, I have depression or I'm anxious or and believe me, I go through moments of chronic stress. And currently I am in the middle of a move. Still staying in Aspen, just moving homes, bigger home, more probably, hopefully we'll be there for a long time. And it has been extremely stressful. And I've noticed that I've been more amped, that the littlest thing sets me off, that I'm not paying attention to the important conversations in my life. Like I can pay attention and be a great listener in my work life. When it comes to my personal life, my friends, my son, my ex-husband, um, it is very challenging to be able to listen. And I think I'm a good listener, but when I am in survival mode, when that cortisol is raised and all of a sudden my adrenaline is pumping and I don't even know I'm in survival, I'm not able to function or be as present in my life. And so, what does this have to do with inflammation? Well, inflammation is a cause of many diseases and illnesses in the body. When there's inflammation in the brain, it can be dangerous, right? That's what concussions are. That's what, when football players have, what's that movie with Will Smith? Maybe it's called Concussion. But there's, it can cause behavioral disorders. It can cause anxiety. It can cause depression. It can cause irrational thought processes. And so inflammation stress, I believe, this is just my personal opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a certified nutritionist. I'm not a certified psychologist, right? I do have a background in many different things, with psychology being one of them. But I believe that the leading cause of inflammation is stress. And why is this conversation important? Because when you're stressed and your body is inflamed, your body cannot heal. You cannot think rationally. It affects your finances, it affects your relationships, it affects all these different things. And so, what do we do about it? We start to recognize that one of the most important things in our health journey, in our life journey, in our wealth journey, in our relationships journey, is to come together, right? To allow yourself to rest, to align with where you are. And sometimes where you are is stressed, right? These last 2 weeks, I've been extremely stressed out. It's no joke, packing and moving, and we've had to do it twice. Long story that I won't get into, but I found myself going, oh my God, looking in the mirror, I didn't even recognize myself, like looking older, right? Feeling more fatigued, feeling like I'm ready to pop. And I'm normally pretty centered. I can handle a lot of stress usually, but these last few weeks, like last probably 6 weeks, I have not been at my best. And so what does that mean? It means that when the body's inflamed, when the brain is inflamed, you're not necessarily present. You're not really thinking logically. And when you're not, it's harder to rest. It's harder to sleep. It's harder to think clearly, right? And then that inflammation over time, so cortisol levels raised over time because you're in fight or flight, inflammation stays raised. All of a sudden your metabolism shifts, you're not able to process, you might hang on to, water weight, your digestion can't process, your heart doesn't work as well, things start to con- constrict and contract, and when we adrenaline pump over time, it can create severe exhaustion, which is also what any of the chronic fatigue disorders can be. And so what what are we going to do about it, right? So my invitation to all of you who are dealing with inflammation and your doctor says cut out almonds or cut out butter or cut out dairy. Yes, that may be helpful, but underlying most of our physical ailments, most of our stress or most of the problems that we're encountering in our body is stress. And so how do you mitigate stress? You learn to do things that calm your parasympathetic nervous system down. And so you want to get an environment that feels safe. You want to create a bedroom that you like sleeping in. You want to avoid, having your door, if you have a bathroom in your bedroom, you want to avoid having the toilet door open to where you're sleeping. You want to take time to take baths, listen to music, meditate, right? My favorite two things, a lot of people are now coming out with, vagus nerve exercises or even vagus nerve apparatuses that help calm the vagus nerve. And so the vagus nerve is this nerve. It's the longest nerve in the body that starts right on the other side of the occiput. And the occiput, right, I used to be a hairdresser to study that. The occiput is this bone that sticks out in the back of the head. So if you run your finger along that inner ridge in your neck, right, and you run it and it kind of has an indentation and it comes out and there's a little bone, that bone is called the occiput, right? And on the other side of the occiput is the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve is one of the longest nerves in the body, right? And I believe that from the energy of the vagus nerve to the energy of the tailbone, right, is basically what runs your parasympathetic nervous system. And so when the parasympathetic nervous system is regulated, you are breathing better, you're more present, you're less stressed, you're feeling more abundant or grateful or appreciating what's in your life. It's hard to appreciate what's in your life when you're stressed out because stress is a survival instinct, right? And long periods of stress over time without the interruption of a relaxation, without the interruption of dancing or laughing or, you know, time with your friends or playing, can be extremely disruptive to your health, but also can be extremely disruptive to your brain, right? And so it's interesting lately, I've been recognizing things that I thought that I had healed from my past, from my childhood, from my trauma. As I'm moving, I've had some old stuff raised to the surface. And the minute it does, it's like out the window. Catherine is not present, at least not in my personal life. In my work life, yes. Personal life, pff, right? And so what do we do about it? We recognize the importance of rest. And I'm not just talking about going to sleep, although sleep is a great way to reset your energy, to realign, to let go. That's why, sometimes hibernating in the wintertime, right? I live in Aspen and bears can be out before the the snow comes. And when that happens, they can get aggressive when they're hungry. Why? Because they're in survival. They want food. They're hungry, right? And then in the wintertime, they disappear and they sleep and they rest. And so I believe that we all need some season of hibernating, of sleeping more, of maybe staying inside more, less social. It doesn't mean you have to do it. It's just an invitation to recognize that if you are constantly feeling off, if you have hated your job for 3 or 4 years, if you are in a stressful relationship for long periods of time, it can really tax your energy levels. It can tax your physical body, which means you're more prone to getting sick. It means that your immune system can be compromised. And so I think that if we were to have a conversation on the planet about what's the one thing that you can do that will drastically change your health, right? And we're talking mental health, physical health, energetic health, relationship health, wealth health, right? Financial health. The one thing that can dramatically shift your health is mitigating stress. And the way that I know the fastest way to mitigate stress is to begin to do things that regulate your parasympathetic nervous system. Somatic exercises, I have a few. I have a free download on my website where you can download some somatic exercises, a PDF that will walk you through. It's all free, right? Because we're not taught to navigate our parasympathetic nervous system. We're not taught to energize our health. Most of us are taught, especially in this culture, in all cultures in the world, except for maybe Native American cultures, shamanic cultures, some cultures in Africa where they primarily are naturally based and they work with the land and they live on the land and they live by sunset, sunrise, right? And so when we get in a day and age where it's 10-second short attention spans, where it's swiping left or right, where it's, scrolling through Instagram or TikTok or Facebook stories or YouTube stories, our attention spans have gotten so short circuited that we're less apt to be present in our lives. We're less apt to be present in our relationships. And so you see it all the time at dinner parties or out at restaurants. I've gotten in the habit of put the phone away, right? Put the phone away. And I used to be on social media all the time for my business. And lately I'm like, you know what? Last year and a half, it's like it doesn't really serve my energy to be always doing that. Once in a while I do it, but it's better to live by the nature, to prioritize health instead of prioritizing defending against disease. Two very different things. You can defend against disease like you defend in an argument, which is exhausting, or you can be on the offensive of it, right? The offense. You can be proactive and you can prioritize health. Right? I saw something on Instagram the other day in my scrolling, which it now lasts about 2 to 3 minutes. It used to last hours. I would get very distracted. Now it's like, no, it doesn't really serve me right now. It's not good for my health. But I saw this that said, the fastest way to mitigate darkness is to let the light in. And I believe it's a metaphor for almost everything in our lives. If we are proactive, if we are prioritizing health, if we're prioritizing light, if we're prioritizing like being a high vibration, if we're prioritizing alignment, if we're prioritizing peace and calm, if we're prioritizing appreciation and gratitude, right? Those things will add to and help you cultivate your health, strengthen your wealth, strengthen your communication, strengthen your relationships far faster than trying to go into the defensive, to try to get rid of, right? And so it's interesting as somebody who helps people, bring in the light, let go of the dark. I used to, back in the day, only focus on what needed to be fixed, right? Kind of like a doctor, but not a doctor, don't worry. And now I like focusing on what can we energize today? What can we focus on? So one of the questions that I like to ask myself on a daily basis is, what do I want to energize today? And a lot of times when I'm answering that or I'm looking at the possibility of that, it's like, wow, I want to energize gratitude. I want to energize appreciation. I want to energize the wealth and abundance that already exists in my world. I want to energize joy. I want to energize play. I want to energize laughter. Very rarely would we ever say, oh, let's energize disease, right? Let's energize darkness. Let's energize anger or frustration, right? All things that lead to stress, which leads to prolonged cortisol levels being raised, which leads to fight or flight, which then leads to your immune system being compromised, your metabolism being compromised, your digestion being compromised. And I know I talk about this a lot, but I really do believe that if we were to have a different conversation with our children about what is healthy, we may include in that conversation spinach and greens and smoothies, but we notice that the conversation a lot of times is like, don't eat so much candy, don't eat so much junk food, sodas are bad for you. We're looking at the negative of what to eliminate instead of the positive and what to add, what to energize, what to focus on. And if we were to broaden this conversation to the health of our children, then maybe we want to start conversations about listening. Maybe like this week, I had parent teacher conferences with my son and his father and myself. And his father and I were like, looks like it's time to set some boundaries, to take the cell phone away, to only allow it at certain time periods because we noticed that our son wasn't as present, right? he wasn't listening to his teacher. He was extremely distracted. He was terrible at answering the questions that were asked of him, and he couldn't even hear them. And I think that in today's day and age, with cell phones being delivered at such a young age, like I don't even know when I had a cell phone. I want to say 28, 29, 27, somewhere in there, and now they're getting them at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And then they're used to just that quick attention span, quick attention span, quick attention span. And if we're being asked to be an energy that is quick attention span, that is cortisol raising, stress producing, it can be exhausting, and it can lead to so much more. So I really want to invite anyone listening that if you are looking at your diet as the primary source of inflammation, what if you start looking at all the areas that are causing stress in your life? And so you may not be able to leave your job currently because that would create more stress, financial stress. But what can you add or focus on or energize? So if you are in a work situation that you are not in love with, maybe you put on in an earbud and you listen to podcasts or things that inspire, motivate you, things that energize you, things that get you thinking about all the positive things. Because when we focus on the negative, stress, cortisol, and cortisol, one of the leading causes of not being able to lose weight, especially when women hit menopause, right? And the amount of suffering that can happen. And so I don't know if men truly comprehend how life transforming it can be through menopause. And what I mean by that is who I was 5 years ago is not who I am today. And that's not a bad thing, but it's like I still am having to reform who I am, how I function, because what used to work in my world doesn't work. My attention span, I'm more prone to, when I get stressed, to having a harder time being able to mitigate it, unless, right? Somatic exercise is one of my favorite things to do. And I teach a class live in Aspen 3 days a week at a studio in Aspen. And so it's like, we want to begin to prioritize regulating our health from an energetic perspective, from the idea that stress could be the leading cause of most dis-ease. Now remember, I'm not a doctor, not a trained psychologist, not a nutritionist, not any of those things. I just have worked with over 20,000 bodies in the last 25 years, and I've seen patterns that fascinate me. And I'm always looking at how can we do better in the world, on the planet as a whole, to support each other's growth and brilliance and health. So stay tuned. We'll be back for a little bit more. If you have any questions about it and you want to call in live, you are welcome to call in live into the show. I don't have the number, and I'm on my phone today because Catherine, who's moving, got a little stressed out this morning and forgot my computer. So, we adore you. Stay tuned. We'll be back after the break talking a little bit more about this.
Times TV.
Do you trust you? Do you trust your body? What if the key to unlocking the weight, pain, suffering, fear, anxiety, addictions, traumas, and sorrows was already inside of you? Learn to love the skin you are in so you can create the body, business, and life you love. Everyone always says you can't explain what Catherine does, you just have to experience it. From Hollywood actors to New York Times best-selling authors to some of the world's wealthiest and most successful, no two experiences are the same. for private sessions, online courses, live events, and the latest book Jack Canfield calls Game Changer and should be required reading for everyone, go to katherinemcintosh.com. KatherineMcintosh.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Okay, my magical friends, so we are back and we are talking about the leading cause of inflammation, which isn't almonds, it's not dairy, it's not, meats, it's stress. And so I wanted to talk a little bit and dive a little bit deeper about the leading cause of stress. Here's what I'm going to say, and you can see if it resonates with you or not, is I believe stress is caused not by what happens to us, but our perspective, right? Stress is thinking we're not happy. And we're not happy if we're like, oh, we don't have enough money, or we don't have enough this, or I don't have the giant house, or I don't have enough friends, right? Stress is thinking that you're unhappy versus appreciating what is in your life, right? Appreciating what you can do now. Because when you begin to shift, I believe leading cause of stress is your perspective on your life. And if you're not happy with your life, it's not about shifting your life. And that although that might happen, but you might not be able to shift it overnight. You might not be able to get a new job in 24 hours. You might not be able to move locations. You might not be able to change cities. You might not be able to get out of your relationship or shift a relationship. There might be circumstances why you can't change your life in this moment, but guess what? You can change. You can change your perspective. You can change your feelings. So when you do not feel happy or good about your life or good about your job or good about your relationship, it's not about pointing a finger at that thing that needs to change. It's about going inside and seeing what part of your perspective can you shift, right? So let me give you an example, right? This is actually a real-time example, right? Recently, so signed a lease and actually was offered through my partner a better place to live. And so we had to get out of the lease, right? And so we could have gotten stressed out about it. We could have gotten upset about it. We could have had the landlord get upset about it. And I said to the landlord, I said, look, I know this isn't ideal, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to take care of everything for you. And I'd like to gift you a session. And, right, you're going to have free maintenance for a year. And so we were talking, and I said, it's interesting that most of us are not good at receiving unless we get into a pickle or a bind. And most of us will create a conflict or a problem or something not going our way in order to receive. So, whether that's receiving kindness, receiving a helping hand, but I've needed a lot of help in this move, and so needed to receive a lot of help, right? And I'm not good at asking for help. But the point being is that this perspective that could have been, oh my God, this is a terrible thing. We have to break the lease. The landlord saying, oh my God, this is a terrible thing. You're breaking the lease. I'm going to charge you for all 12 months, right? That didn't happen because we all were willing to shift our perspective. And then all of a sudden, the landlord was calling, being like, oh my God, this is the best thing that's ever happened, right? The new tenant is amazing. They get along. It's just, so you never know why something is happening, right? But more often than not, it's occurring to bring you something greater. And yet, most of us go, oh my God, the worst thing that happened. So I used to say to my clients, I don't always do that anymore because it just depends. If someone says, oh my God, I just got out of a relationship, instead of I'm so sorry, I used to say congratulations, or I'm going through a divorce, congratulations, right? Because the point is that something better is always coming along. Are you willing to have the perspective that life is always working out for you, right? And look, we all go through horrible situations. I've had a very colorful life. I've had a lot of crazy things happen. And at the end of the day, life always got better because I knew it was an opportunity to shift. So, for all of you out there that are stressed out, you might want to ask, what's the cause of the stress? And I don't mean blaming it on your job or blaming it on your partner. Start to go, okay, I'm stressed because I don't like my job. Okay, I keep saying I don't like my job, which is causing more stress, which is causing more exhaustion, which is causing me to be frustrated, which might be causing me to drink too much at night, which might be causing me to not sleep properly, right? You could go down this laundry list versus, wow, I'm not that happy in my job, but what am I happy about? What part of this can I spin so that my perspective starts to take in all of the positive things that are occurring? And yet, most of us, when something negative is in our world, we laser beam focus on it. And that causes stress, inflammation, indigestion, poor metabolism, lack of patience, right? So I've been listening to some books on listening because I've recognized in my personal life, might be incredible listener in my work life, but in my personal life, not the best listener. And some of my friends say, oh, you're great. I'm like, no, not really, because it could take more time to really hear what's going on in people's worlds, right? Instead of thinking in my head what I can do to help, right? I'm a helper by nature. I want to gift, I want to give, I want to contribute, but sometimes that can be a hindrance, which then causes me stress in my body. And when I get stressed out, my body hangs on to stuff. I clench my jaw, right? And so, for all of you out there that are looking to change your life, two quickest ways you can do it is start a gratitude journal. Start to appreciate everything that's actually in your life. Start to minimize the things that you complain about, right? Start to minimize blaming it on something or someone else and go, okay, how can I shift my perspective? Because it takes a shift, right, for you to shift. And so it's not about the outside world changing, because you will never be happy if you are dependent on the outside world changing. You'll never be happy if it has to be, you know, the right house, the right partner, the right political environment, the right yoga teacher, the right, like, you navigate and find what resonates and find a way to be happy and at peace with where you're at today. And yes, we all go through stressful situations. So my quickest fix for helping your parasympathetic nervous system, for getting you into relaxation. Did you know that if you hold this pose, so you basically put your hands behind your head where your hands are interlocked and right in the middle, right on that occiput bone, right where your vagus nerve is. If you just hold your pose for 2 minutes like this, right? You can kind of lean back, you can open up the elbows, relax the shoulders, you can even close your eyes. So when I'm stressed out, I walk around my house with my hands behind my head, right? And then the second piece that you can do, which is already starting it, right, is to yawn while your hands are behind your head, because what that does is it releases trapped, excuse me, see, we started it. It releases trapped energy out of your vagus nerve. So try it with me, right? Just come get those hands behind the head. You can do it laying down, you can do it walking around. You just start to, so you might start to notice that you salivate in the mouth. That means your vagus nerve is shifting. It's starting to calm down. Already I feel calmer, right? And then you add a yawn into it, right? Excuse me. You add a yawn into it. I'm like, oh, I could take a nap right now. I believe that if the planet spent 2 minutes a day just doing this, right? And if you salivate, if you yawn, your vagus nerve will shift, right? So you just yawn. Excuse me, if we spent 2 minutes a day, don't want to do it too much, 2 minutes a day with our hands behind our heads, and then you can release and just notice, does it feel different? Do you feel calmer? Do you feel more relaxed, more at ease? Right? And I notice that when I do that, I'm like, oh, what can I appreciate? What can I be grateful for? And just by doing that 2 minutes a day decreases the cortisol in your body by 65%. So if we had the planet doing this for 2 minutes a day, we would probably see a ginormous reduction in over-the-counter meds. We would probably see a ginormous reduction in the diet industry's success, right? Because people are going on diets while they're in survival mode, while their cortisol levels are constant. And if you're somebody, I've been there, who hates their body, hates their weight, is constantly thinking a diet is going to fix it, you're in chronic fight or flight. 24/7, your cortisol through the roof, inflammation through the roof, metabolism suppressed, digestion suppressed, right? Good gut microbiome bacteria that helps your depression, that helps your energy, that helps your skin, that helps your mood, suppressed. 2 minutes a day would change the world. And so, my friends, I want to invite you to just go on a mission with me, not for me, not with me, or with me if you'd like. What if you committed 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 2 minutes a day, lowering those cortisol levels, giving yourself a break, finding ways to allow yourself to prioritize from the inside out peace and calm. Prioritize your health, prioritize the good in your life, right? One day at a time, one moment at a time, one energy at a time. So that's all I have for you. So if you are someone who is looking on the web, what's wrong with you? See if you can focus on reducing your stress. right? Lowering your cortisol 2 minutes a day can lower it up to 65%. And if the world was less stressed, wow, we all might make better decisions. We all might have greater communication, greater connection. We all might not be so prone to look at our phone when we get anxious or interrupt someone. And by the way, in my personal life, pretty bad at interrupting people. Work life, not so much. So, my friends, one day at a time, one moment at a time, what if you started prioritizing your stress levels, your cortisol, and see if instead of calling the doctor or calling, whoever, you just look at what if you prioritize reducing your stress, right? Shifting your perspective, prioritizing your peace and calm, and see what happens, right? And I'm not saying don't go to a doctor if you're sick, don't reach out to somebody for help if you need it, but what if you started something different? We've gotten into the habit of quick fixing. And what if health was a series of tiny, tiny, tiny different choices that you make over long periods of time that create the biggest difference in your life? So if this episode today resonated with you, if you like what you had to hear, you can check out free resources on my website, but particularly the Healing Your Nervous System, right? It's a free download. You can get it right away. You go to my website, catherinemcintosh.com. Thank you all for being here. One day at a time, one moment at a time, one cortisol drop at a time. And until next time, thank you for being here.
Catherine is not a medical practitioner nor a licensed therapist. She has strong opinions and will express them, and truly believes that you are your best advocate for any and every area of your life. If you need medical advice, please consult your physician.